the narrative. And it seems a bit weird, but it really can be as simple as just making things bigger or smaller, or considering how much space they occupy, within a shot, and how kind of domineering they are within them. One of the greatest pieces of design, and I might see if I can just quickly find it. Sleeping Beauty. So the Disney film Sleeping Beauty, it did something really, really clever in that the actual character of Maleficent is really kind of small. So she doesn't in that film. So she doesn't occupy physical space until right at the end when she becomes a giant dragon, and then she's like boom, like she's massive, and Philip is like this tiny little guy with a sword and a shield. But all the way through the rest of the film, she's this really thin character, but everything she says is really intense. There's a kind of the scene where she does kind of the most evil thing in the history of a character ever. There we go, Sleeping Beauty, 1959. Not to nerd out too hard, but Sleeping Beauty is one of my favourite films ever. As a designer, animation perspective, it is absolutely insane. Production, under production art. Let's see if it's here. Living Lines Library is your friend if you're an animation student, by the way. Like just live in this website. Living Lines Library. It's just a huge collection of stuff. It's just all production art. Let's see if we can find her. There you go. Like, yeah, so in terms of like the design of a character, yeah, when she's talking, she's just very, very small. That she's framed as this kind of thin, gaunt character that doesn't really occupy too much space. I think our internet connection has just given up on us today. Yeah, she doesn't really occupy too much space. And it's really only when she goes kind of crazy. Let's see if we can find if there's any footage of her as a dragon. Yeah, it's like that. It's exactly what we've done with Frollo. Low, up, huge amount of space kind of taken up. Like we're not seeing a dragon. Look at that. That's a great example of it. Just a character filling a physical space, and that's actually those are the keyframes, like the beat keys for that shot. But yeah, for the rest of the film, she's just like this thin. I love the scene where she's kind of introduced at the announcement of the birth. She's tiny. She just kind of floats in like this vertical line through all the shots. And I think that's almost designed to make you underestimate her. There's another shot where she's captured Philip and she chains him up, and then she explains to him that she's going to let him get old and then release him just so Aurora rejects him because he's an old man, which is proper evil. Like, it's really hardcore evil, but when she does it, she's just this tiny shot. And it's
but of course we know now that she was actually good. It's the men who
Yeah, I don't know. I love that film. I think it's a great film, but I consider it to be a reboot.
I consider the Maleficent film to be like what Wicked was to...
Absolutely. Yeah, just a reimagining. Yeah. I mean, in terms of narrative here, they could have just invited her. Would have been fine. She'd have just turned up, had some cake. It would have been great. But no, she didn't handle it particularly well, did she? Anyway, so yeah, just going back to this, we're looking at that dialogue. We're looking at not just what does a good shot look like, but the grammar. How do we relate one to another? And it's something, I know this sounds very nerdy, but when I watched the final films last year, that was one of the things I was looking at. It's like just pausing every film and going, okay, what does this look like? Let's move to the next shot. How do the two kind of relate? What's the relationships between them? Have you seen last year's films? Yeah? My favourite is Cacophony, but there is a massive problem with it, in that every shot is beautiful, but none of them relate. And I felt like it needed to be because I know it's about like the build towards something, and the way that musicality exists without music and stuff. And it's awesome, but it felt like it needed to be re-edited because there were shots that felt like they could have been swapped over and it still would have worked, but the continuity would have been, grammar would have been more fluid between them. And that's what we're looking for, is that kind of really good grammar. Right, so we've got like 20 minutes left of this session. What I want to do for this, I want you to finish these. So you'll have like 25, 10, 1. Yeah, we're like, in terms of how much experimenting, we're reducing down as we go through each stage of this. So you've got loads of your original story sketches, the rough ones on paper. You've got multiple of the imagining of this from task 2. And now for task 3, I want you to condense that down and just do the next shot. You know, just the best version of the next shot that we can create. Obviously, that's not even half done. What I would do now at this stage is I would take this opacity down maybe 20% roughly. Oh, look at that. He's done something wrong there. I don't know on that one. I would take that right down and then I'd just paint it. I would go in just with a brush and actually design it, because now I've got a light study underneath. I know where the high value and low value areas are, and I can just use the brushes to kind of create the shot. Much in the same vein as that we've done up here, but just with a bit more clarity, a little bit more neatness. And that's kind of how we get to those really complex... are we on Pinterest? Yeah, we are. Somewhere. Yeah, that's how we'll get to the complex Paul Felix, this stuff. Yeah, it's principally exactly the same, so that's a really low risk. Oh no, it's fixed itself. Yeah, a slightly better version of that shot from Milan. But principally it's exactly the same. It started with a light study, and then they've taken that, and over the top of it, drawn a more complete kind of visual development piece that really goes into detail of the light, the relationships with light in this, and, you know, things like strong silhouettes. Again, physicality in the space, you know, how much space is kind of occupied. I just picked Paul Felix because Paul Felix does this thing where, yeah, I love that Lilo and Stitch. Look at the lights, the understanding of light in that, of where do the relationships exist between objects, and how is the sun working in that space. Lovely continuation as well. So what I mean by continuation is, so this is an introduction to Lilo in the cafeteria, in the cafe. But can you see this angle here? The light comes from outside, so our eye is drawn inwards. It's like, oh, we're going into this space. And right at the last moment, it introduces an angle. And then the next shot, that angle is amplified. That's just good grammar. We go back to unofficial Paul Felix. Yeah, it's just good grammar. It's introducing a shape and then emphasizing it. So we're drawn in, we see the beginnings of an angle, and then we cut to a more, you know, the camera turns and we've got a similar angle. Kind of, it repeats that behavior. And obviously, yeah, Paul Felix didn't do that with Photoshop. He did that with just pencil and paper. Yeah, anyway, so last half hour, there's another great one. We could just do this for the next half hour, just pick stuff up on Pinterest. Last half hour, I want you to attack these final drawings, this second shot. Do the light study and then begin to paint into it, and then I want to come around and kind of take a look at what you've got so far and offer you technical advice and feedback, whatever it may be. And yeah, however frustrating it feels and however angry you feel about it, just remember, at least you're not doing a graphite pencil. You can rub stuff out. Right, so let's attack this as best we can, and then we can see how much can you get done in 20 minutes.